The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
Happy Sunday, everyone. Hope all of you are having a fantastic day. Hey, before you settle in and enjoy some NFL football, we're talking Big 12 football here on this weekend as we recap Week 2 of Big 12 action. If you're listening on podcasts as well, we appreciate you. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcast. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry. Alex, we had some debate, some heated debate. It conjured up some reactions in our Week 1 power rankings, but I think this is going to get even more people fired up for Week 2 edition of the First and 12 power rankings.
The Big 12 Power Rankings, a weekly rank of all 16 programs, from the elite to the bottom dwellers.
Interestingly enough, for the power rankings, again, this is a week-to-week thing. These are not – we're trying to get our footing here. You know what I mean? Like, there's these first few weeks sort of give us a shakeout as to how things are going. You can be the number 8 team one week and the number 16 team the next week. You know why? Because Mitch Harper is critical. He will absolutely blast you if you do not have a performance.
That's what Kalani said I do. All of us media, you're just so critical about everything.
You guys are so good at scrutinizing us. I don't know. Like, you told me, Mitch. Oh, I heard it. I text Mitch as soon as I heard it because I was like, he's talking to you, dude. He's coming after you, Mitch. How do you be so negative about this BYU team, dog? Mitch doing his job down in Dallas. That's what happens. All right, let's just start from 1. I think we went 16 down to 1 last week, but let's start at 1 this week. And look, you can't argue with taking Utah out of that number 1 spot where they've been, mostly just because the teams behind them were all kind of just sort of meddling around and getting wins. But more importantly, I think that the reason Utah could get put right there was that first half, really that first quarter. And when Cam Rising is in, and I think that ultimately he's going to be okay still. You heard Kyle Whittingham say that hand is going to be okay. I'm not worried about Utah if Cam Rising is going to be okay. But, man, there's some dicey moments wondering if your leader is going to be back. Yeah,
that's the only pause that if you wanted to maybe drop them to 2. But, yeah, you got to keep them at 1 because they just crushed Baylor. I mean, that first half, Baylor was at 30, 40 yards at most. There were stretches where they were at negative 26 rushing yards. Baylor could do nothing up until the point when Cam hit the Gatorade cooler. And I know just that sentence alone sounds very weird, but yes, when he hit a Gatorade cooler, that's when it all changed. But Utah has got to stay at that number 1 spot. Number 2, Oklahoma State. They maintain their spot. And, the Pokes, they do what they did. And that's with – but this time is with Alan Bowman. They pulled off the comeback through the air, and they get a big win over Arkansas, who I think might be a much improved team this year. Arkansas, I think, could be someone that knocks off some teams in the SEC. So I think that could be a real nice data point on a playoff resume, maybe at-large resume for Oklahoma State. I thought that was a big win on Saturday.
Iowa State, the Cyclones, and his Matt Campbell's team obviously pulling out an awesome upset over Iowa at Iowa when you didn't know if it was going to be that way. And they're the ones who make the biggest jump upward, well, besides one other team, but they made the second biggest jump. Iowa State at 3 this week, and I'm okay with it. Look, that's a team that you don't want to mess with now. And they come into Utah this year. That's going to be a tougher game I think people give credit for.
Well, and also, too, you got to look at the resumes to this point. If you tear down the power ranking week by week and you start anew, Iowa State's got one of the best wins in the league to this point, winning at Kinnick Stadium. And, they got a huge win over a rival, and they did it in a comeback fashion, sets the table for them to really do some big things this season. And, Iowa State, that 3-3-5 defense is nasty. They are a physical defense, that style of play that they have, they can match up against anyone. So Iowa State, it's well-deserved. It might be a little bit surprising because K-State is viewed more in the conversation of a Big 12 title contender. They are at number 4 this week, but they struggled against Tulane, and I'm willing to, give some leniency to that. Again, road game, bad weather, and Tulane's a good football program, even though they got a new head coach. Willie Fritz, of course, comes to Houston, but I think I'm willing to give some leniency, but I do need to see improvement from Avery Johnson. He was 15 of 23 passing the football. Not bad, but still not great. I want to see more in the passing game from Avery going forward if I'm going to really see them become that Big 12 title contender like I think they can be.
This team has moved up 11 spots in the last 2 weeks. Arizona State, the Fighting Kenny Dillinghams. Arizona State won last week by 6 touchdowns in their first week, and you kind of go, all right, that's fine. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get in the first week, but certainly being able to impress. They do the same thing again this week. They absolutely are looking like a totally different team. Mitch, as the culture change there, are they going to be short-lived in the power rankings, or is Kenny Dillingham making that turnaround quicker than people thought he was going to?
I think Arizona State, they are playing some great football. Scatabo at running back, Levitt at quarterback. They are looking great. And
does Scabado have 262? Is that what he had this week?
Yeah, he had 262 yards. And they had so many additions from the portal at the line of scrimmage, and those guys are hitting. I mean, they are a much more physical football team, too, in the trenches, and they bullied Mississippi State. I mean, the final score looks like it was close, but that was a beatdown in the first half, and ASU was, Dillingham made it a point coming out of the halftime break, like they got to finish the job because I think it was a learning opportunity to put your foot on the gas and get it done, and they let Mississippi State back into it a little bit. But still, I mean, ASU had that in the bag. That was a dominant performance, and that team's going to be tough to take out. I don't know if they're going to be 9 wins or anything like that, but can we see 8? It's definitely a bowl team. I think right now I feel confident they're going to be a 6-win football team. ASU is climbing fast. They're doing a really nice job in the early part of the Big 12 season. It might be a little bit of a stretch for some, but I think ASU deserves being in that top 5 to this point. Number 6, UCF, they are just crushing the weak schedule that they faced thus far, and you got to respect the dominance from the Knights thus far.
Yeah, and, they stay in that same spot, and that's fine. I think Arizona at 7 is about where everybody got knocked down at least one because of the jump up of Arizona State. And so Arizona, a little bit of a weak performance after that 66-point outburst, and everybody thought Tech McMillan was going to have like a 400-yard week against Northern Arizona. Not the case. So you kind of have the middle that sort of goes, like you said, Arizona State 5, UCF 6, Arizona 7. And then Kansas at 8, I'm comfortable putting the Jayhawks there, even though, they get the loss this week. I think, obviously, they also played a little bit better opponent. Illinois is much improved, but, I mean, you don't say that very often. But it is a Big Ten opponent.
BYU and Baylor fans experienced what Kansas experienced over the weekend, where you got yards, you moved up and down the field, but with the Jeff Grimes offense, you'll sometimes be left with a final score total that's like – that you couldn't get into the end zone. You couldn't finish the job. And, Kansas was turnover prone, and they made a lot of mistakes. Jalen Daniels, 3 picks. He's got to clean that up. And I thought on the final drive, too, his decision-making there, trying to have an opportunity to maybe get a Hail Mary opportunity, his arm strength didn't look great to me either, Alex. I thought that was kind of a little bit of an underrated piece there watching that football game. But Kansas, I thought, took a little bit of a step back. And, look, they're still getting used to this spotlight role. I mean, who would have thought you'd get to a point where a Big Ten team is getting hyped over beating a Kansas football team? So that's a testament to the job they're still doing. But I think they're over that sentiment. They want to just be viewed as a nationally ranked team week after week, and they squandered that opportunity. I would imagine they're probably going to fall out of the polls when the poll gets released a little bit later today. Number 9, TCU. They haven't faced really anyone. Stanford on the road in week 1, and then this week they played
Liechtenstein,
LIU,
wasn't it? Was
Long
it
Island University. It was just a total scrub, and they thumped them. And TCU it goes to 9.
BYU stays right behind TCU, and again, they get knocked down 1, mostly because of the moving of Arizona State. But I'm fine putting them back kind of right where they were at there in that right behind TCU and ahead of West Virginia, who's at 11. And, not a lot changed there in the middle. And I think for BYU fans, they go, yeah, they did beat SMU, and SMU is, on paper, probably one of the better opponents that teams across the Big 12 faced. But, yeah, it wasn't necessarily pretty. So I think they're about where they should be there, right behind TCU at number 10.
No question. And I think the quarterback situation gives the reason to maybe knock them just a tick, because when you're forecasting long term, I think 10 is a fair spot right now for BYU, but if it was solely based on the defense, they're definitely trending up. 11, West Virginia, they were struggling in the first half against Albany, and it took like a late first half touchdown from Garrett Green to really get some separation, but the Great Danes were competitive for about 25 minutes. I thought that was a little bit concerning. I know probably a hangover effect from the Penn State game, but West Virginia, where they just kind of a one-hit wonder last year with a weaker schedule. This year the schedule's ratcheted it up. Are they going to have Neil Brown back on the hot seat? We'll see. But I kind of was a little bit underwhelmed in that first half against Albany. And then number 12, Colorado, the Buffs, they had a real opportunity to climb this pole because had they won at Nebraska or even been more competitive, they could have made a jump, but squandered that opportunity.
Yeah, frankly, I mean, they had a bad enough performance. Now, Baylor was absolutely abysmal, so that's their number 13 on our list here. Baylor, I think Baylor could actually – look, Baylor, Cincinnati, Houston, and Texas Tech, that 13, 14, 15, 16, what we have right now, that seems like it's going to be some version of that the rest of the – well, although Texas Tech is at 16 because Mitch likes to punish people for punching below their weight. I mean, that's a Mitch Harper deal. If you underperform, Coach McGuire – you're on notice. Mitch Harper's going to get after you if you guys show up flat, man, and that's what happened.
They did, and there was just I questioned the effort a little bit. And I'll be curious to hear from Joey McGuire. And I know they didn't have Taj Brooks, but man, that team just lacked any sort of fire and passion a little bit. Whereas Houston showed some heart against Oklahoma. And last week they lost to a UNLV team I think is pretty good. So I think Texas Tech warrants being the 16th spot this week. Now, will they at season's end? Probably not. They've got talent on that team, but I'm tired of talking about Texas Tech having talent. Like, it's got to show up. Yeah. I know he's a great recruiter, but it's got to start showing up here soon. And Joey McGuire's got to get that talent to translate and give great results because they've got the resources. That's what's crazy about Tech is like, they've got resources and the ability to win big, and they're nowhere near the thought of you entertaining them as a title contender in this league.
I honestly think by the end of the year, Baylor's going to be the worst team in this conference. Like that's where my head's at because I think Dave Aranda is not long for that job. You could see that guy losing his gig halfway through the season just based off of, well, one, I mean, if you're a defensive coach, you're supposed to be really, really good on defense. They're still like the last year they ended like 120th in total defense. Not good, and their offense doesn't move the ball at all. I bet we see Baylor in the basement in the coming weeks here. All right, there are your power rankings. They change every week, and it's a tryout. Look, people are beating the door down on this show all the time, Mitch. They're like, hey, how can we get our team up in the power poll? Impress Mitch Harper. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. All right. We'll take another break here. We'll come back. We've got more to go. Our Utah game breakdown with Baylor. Speaking of the Baylor Bears and the Utah Utes, Cam Rising, his status going forward, what that looks like. Much more to go around the corner. It is your First and 12 program brought to you by Macy's. Happy shopping. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry back right after this. More to go. Stay with us.
Can't get enough BYU football? Listen to Cougar Nation. Mitch Harper takes your calls Monday nights from 6 to 7 on KSL News Radio. Podcast at kslnewsradio.com.
Shameless plug. Tomorrow afternoon, JJ and Alex on the KSL Sports Zone, and then right when 6 o'clock pops up, that's when you can come on there and start complaining to Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte about or give your thoughts. I mean, honestly, you're going to have a lot of excited BYU fans, I think, about that BYU defense, obviously, Mitch. But there will be the questions. People coming out of the woodwork going, what's going on with this quarterback situation? I thought he didn't throw any picks in camp. But, yeah, tons of questions still. But this is how the season goes. You got to roll it out. You have to play the games, Mitch, to try to see what happens. Speaking of another game, I'm watching that Utah and Baylor game, and I'm going – somebody tweeted it out. I don't even know who it was. Just some kind of a rando on Twitter. But I was like, yeah. The statement was Utah and Baylor not even playing the same sport currently. And I thought that's exactly right. That's how big of a disconnect Baylor was with that Utah team. Speaking of good defenses, that Utah defense scares the heck out of people, and it happened again yesterday. But, man, as soon as Cam Rising went out of that game, that the Gatorade table collision and whatever happened with his hand, a cut or a sprain. I don't know what it ended up being, but they said it's not that big of a deal. But it is on his throwing hand, Mitch. And so you already had people coming out of the woodwork going, "Hey man, keep that guy out versus Utah State. You can roll up there in Logan. You don't need him." But you saw how bad that Utah offense was. Part of it is you're not planning on putting Isaac Wilson in the very early stages of this game. But Utah looks really good, but there's a part that just feels a little bit nerve-wracking because of the injury history with Cam Rising.
No question, and you just don't want it to become a couple days he's out, and then it turns into a couple weeks, and it's just an ongoing deal. And because this team's got playoff aspirations. When we're putting them at number one in our power rankings in the last segment, that's a team that's going to be viewed for the playoff chase. And you saw that in the first half with the defense. I mean, through the whole game. I thought I was really impressed with Nate Ritchie. He's become a mainstay. He's always been a heralded guy from that COVID year in 2020, coming out of Lone Peak. He had 9 tackles, a tackle for loss in this game. They just dominated Baylor. And any thought that I kind of had a thought that maybe Baylor would be a little competitive because I was intrigued by DeQuan Finn, the Toledo transfer at quarterback. He was a MAC Offensive Player of the Year. Just suffocated him. He was doing nothing. 9 of 21, 115 yards. Utah was all over him. And I will say this: it was a impressive first impression for Utah. I know it wasn't a conference game. It was non-conference because it was an old, home and home series scheduled, but they kind of sent a message that their style of play, they are out to just attack these Big 12 teams. Now, there's a much better teams in this league than Baylor, but still, they sent a message like if you're near the cellar of this league, they will crush you, especially at home. Utah just continues, what is it now, 33 of their last 36 they've won at home, something to that effect. So it was a really good first impression in this league going up against a Big 12 foe in a weird non-conference matchup.
Yeah, here's what Kyle Whittingham had to say about it. Obviously, you're good to get the win, and even if there's some uncomfortable feelings about what that looks like going forward with Cam Rising's injury, here's what Whit said after the game.
It's good to get the win. As the college football world found out today, it's hard to get wins, Division I wins sometimes, and we didn't play perfectly. We had a lot that we left on the table. Started out, I thought we were going to win by 40. We got up 17-zip fairly early, and we just lost our momentum. Credit Baylor, they hung in there, made some plays, kept fighting. Certainly when Cam left the game, that was a downer for us, but the world can't stop turning when Cam exits a game, and we got to keep playing, which we did, but we got to be productive, which we were not real productive after that. So we'll continue to figure that out.
Isaac Wilson, I mean, we'll talk about that in the next segment here too, but and we'll hear more from Kyle Whittingham. But yeah, he's been thrust in the last 2 weeks, Mitch, in some weird situations, kind of where you weren't necessarily like, oh, that's exactly where you want him. So I'm not going to be the guy that gets on here and dogs Isaac Wilson. I saw him play in high school, and he was the best high school player I've ever seen in person. I mean, that's having watched a lot of good players, including his brother at that very same school.
He was better than Zach at graduating high school. And look, I watched Zach a ton at Corner Canyon. Isaac was better than Zach at this point of their careers. As far as freshmen, signal callers, yes, I agree. Isaac was special. And I will say, we kind of tongue-in-cheek, about Utah State next week. I do believe you could win a game with Isaac Wilson in Logan next week, if need be, because Utah State, they got thumped 48-zip to USC. And I know it's USC, but still, you can win that game with Isaac Wilson if you need to, and that defense is not going to give up anything to Utah State. So I think that if you need to give Cam a week, I think it's okay to do that because Utah State's the perfect spot to make that happen, to give him extra time to be ready for conference play coming up against that big game against Oklahoma State in 2 weeks.
Let's take another break here. Let's jump in because we'll come back with more of our Utah breakdown against Baylor. We'll hear a little bit more of a chunk from Kyle Whittingham and his thoughts after the game about how this one went down. And there's time to go here. It's a Sunday morning. It's our breakdown of the Big 12 every week right here. It's called First and 12. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone. You can also hear us on KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM. So we'll be right back. More to go. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone, and KSL News Radio.
The following is a presentation of KSL Sports. First and 12. A total roundup of BYU and Utah football and the expanded Big 12 Conference. Brought to you by Macy's Grocery Stores. Your hosts are Mitch Harper and Alex Kirry on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.
Utah takes down Baylor 23-12. Utes improved to 2-0 on the season. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry with you here on First and 12 this Sunday morning. Hope all of you are having a fantastic weekend as we're getting into the heart of football season now. Weather's turning. It feels like we're settling into the fall season, and Utah is kind of in mid-season form with their defense. Offensively, I think there's still some areas they'd like to improve, probably in the run game. Mike Mitchell, he went down with an injury in that game, which was something to monitor. How, everyone's talking about Cam Rising's hand, but, Mitchell goes down. He got carted off. So that'll be something to monitor going forward as far as depth at that running back position, which is an area they're trying to improve. And head coach Kyle Whittingham spoke on, recapping the Baylor win and what's next for the Utes.
Fairly early, and we just lost our momentum. Credit Baylor, they hung in there, made some plays, kept fighting. Certainly when Cam left the game, that was a downer for us, but the world can't stop turning when Cam exits a game, and we got to keep playing, which we did, but we got to be productive, which we were not real productive after that. So we'll continue to figure that out. Isaac, I thought, did a nice job. Didn't turn the ball over, completed some balls. That one drive, second to last drive, where we converted 3 or 4 first downs. That was really the key to putting the game away, is to burn that 6 or 7 minutes off the clock that we did. And so, but the real key to the game, one reason we won the football game, is our defense. Defense played lights out. They only got 223 yards a total, 12 first downs, which in this day and age of college football, that's outstanding defense. Blocked a field goal with our defensive block unit, returned it for a touchdown. So they not only kept Baylor in check, they scored and helped our cause in that regard. Still not running the football as well as we need to, as well as we can. About like last week, just under 5 yards a carry, somewhere in the 175-yard range. Still need to try to get more takeaways. We did get the strip sack, which set the offense up on the 4 or 5 yard line, which was a big play. And so really, between that and the block field goal for a touchdown, defense really was responsible for 14 points. So again, they were the player of the game. We have a player of the game after each game, and the defense collectively was our player of the game. So Cam, can't give you an answer right now on his availability. Just been told it's not real serious. That's the only. What I know now. It wasn't real serious, and can't tell you the exact description of what happened. But he should. He may be back this week. We'll see. But other than that, we got to do a little better job of spreading the ball around, getting the ball to our playmakers. Dorian Singer's a heck of a receiver. Brant Keithy, one of the top receiving tight ends in the country. We got to feature him a little bit more. And so there's things we got to work on if we want to get to where we want to be. That we have to work on and improve. So questions?
Kyle, if Cam isn't able to go, what do you need to do to kind of help Isaac move that along?
Well, today's experience, as well as last week's, was really good for him. To me, he looked much more comfortable, much more in charge today than he did last week, at least his first series or two, and that's to be expected. That was his first college experience last week, but threw some good balls, threw a real nice ball to money, and didn't turn the ball over, like I said. If he is going to be a quarterback, then he's got an outstanding ability to run the football as well. So we'd have to look at maximizing that. But for him, he's just reps. He just needs to accrue reps. He's getting all the 2 reps in practice, and so he is taking steps forward. And he's our guy. He's the number 2 guy, clearly right now. And so that's where we're at with Isaac.
What did you see on the play where Cam did get injured?
Yeah, I didn't see. I wasn't obviously. It was on the other side of the field, but it looked like it certainly was a possible late hit situation or unnecessary roughness situation. I can't say because I didn't get a good enough look. We'll watch the film and see what we think. What do you think? You probably got a better look than I do.
It was late.
Late? Well, there you go. So yeah. But I'll have to reserve judgment till I get to see it.
Pass rush came alive today with Connor O'Toole. What did you see from them? What did you like about that?
Connor O'Toole is he's a tremendous athlete. Came to us as a receiver. He's I think he was the state high hurdle champion in New Mexico. I mean, he's a great athlete, and we recruited him with the intention that he would grow into either a tight end or a defensive end. Gained 40 pounds, moved to D end, and he's just got explosive get off. As an edge player, your number one asset has got to be your get off. That's the number one thing you look for in an edge player. He's got a tremendous get off. He's explosive, and he's a relentless player. His motor never stops, and so he's going to fight you the whole 60 minutes. I thought Van Fillinger played really well, and one of the big plays of the game when he hawked that quarterback down, when the quarterback kept it, he burst and hit a gear that I didn't think he had, and got that guy down, and that was a huge play there. Special teams was disappointing. You know, we need to be better on special teams. We missed 2 very makeable field goals. We botched a PAT, had a couple touchbacks on punt. You shouldn't have a couple touchbacks all year, let alone in one game. And so there's things to work on there. We got to coach it better. We got to coach that better and be more effective. Their punter was outstanding, but he was out kicking coverage, and it was a shame we couldn't get something set up and get something going there because we had space, but we just never really got anything going in the punt return game. So, but that we got to be better at special teams. That's one of our priorities going into this next game.
What's the status of Mike Mitchell, and if you don't have him in that room, what do you feel like you guys need to do to continue to improve?
He should be fine. He's got some little nagging things that have bugged him throughout fall camp. He wasn't able to practice real effectively until Wednesday or Thursday of this past week, but hopefully Mike is going to be in the room all season long, and he's got to get these things healed up, and between him, Mackay, Duty, Dijon Stanley gives us some good reps, and Charlie Vincent gave us a couple nice runs today. So again, it's by committee, which isn't all bad, but Mackay, the closest thing we have to a lead back right now is Mackay Bernard.
Is there a reason Jalen Glover didn't get touches?
Just wasn't in the plan today. Just wasn't in the plan, and no specific reason other than we had those other guys penciled in for what we were doing.
Can you just speak on Teo's performance today? He was just kind of all over the place, especially, and then that field goal touchdown.
Exactly. Teo Johnson's a big play guy. He's the one that, as you mentioned, returned the block punt or the block field goal for a touchdown. He's got great speed. We don't want to have to move him from safety to nickel or corner because that reduces his freedom and what he can do for us. And Scooby Davis did a really nice job in Kenan Johnson's absence, number 9, the corner opposite of Zamai Vaughn. And if he continues to play like that, then we're going to be in good shape. And so that'll allow us to continue to leave Teo at safety. And where you saw him do is, what he did today. He's all over the place. He's got 4.4, maybe 4.38 speed, and he's 200 pounds, athletic, and tough. He's really tough. So we're excited about that.
If Cam isn't able to go against Utah State, will Isaac be the starter for that game, or will it be?
Unless you think someone else should start. I don't know. I'm thinking Isaac personally. Yep. And we'll have to see who his backup will be. That will be a contested situation. But Isaac, he would be our guy if Cam can't go, and I don't see that changing.
Your offensive line was their first matchup with a power school, at least with those 4 guys as one. How do you feel about their push up front and facing off with Dave Randis? Hot and
cold. We opened up some gashing runs there for a while, and then it was tough sledding for a while. It was not consistently as good as we need to be. And same thing on the pass rush. At times we protected well, but at times we had early pressure in the throw game, and so. Those 2 young tackles, they're exceptional athletes, and they're going to be great. By the time it's all over with, they'll be great. But they're just, a true freshman or a redshirt freshman and a true sophomore, and so they're still learning. But they have the athleticism and all the tools you need to be phenomenal players, and they're on their way to that end.
Are those issues coming from more, ability, or is it pre-snap stuff, recognition?
More the latter, pre-snap stuff, and just identifying fronts and responsibilities and passing off twists and twist games and that type of thing, and that'll come. The inside three are much more experienced. Well, I shouldn't say that because Tanoa, the left guard, he's first-year starter. He's been in the program a lot longer, but we believe in that offensive line. And I believe they're going to continue to get better and better as the season. Is that a handlebar mustache? All right, I'm digging it. It's nice. Okay. Did someone say last question or not? Oh, that's it. Okay. Thanks, guys.
Look at that, Mitch. Witt's gotten a lot more comfortable with the media. Look at that. He does it on his own terms. He basically he makes a joke. Is that a handlebar mustache? And he goes, I'm out, everybody. Good night. he's like stand up. You'll see him at the Improv when he retires in a couple of years. So there you go. Yeah, they escape with the win. You could tell there's a feeling of, and maybe it's just him being the leader, trying to keep the troops calm and maybe the fans a little bit calm. Like, hey, we're not worried about it. Like, either way, whatever they're going to choose, if Cam's going to play against Utah State or not, like, they probably feel good about either one. And if they do have to prep the whole week with Isaac Wilson, that's a way better situation than just throwing him in there because, like you said, that defense will basically keep that Utah State team to zero. I'm convinced. Like, they will.
And they will have a axe to grind with maybe the pig farmer. Like, not that there's anything personal vendetta, but just they'll make it a story. Like, they're gonna say, hey, like, you leave us, well, you're no longer part of this inner circle. We are going to make you feel our presence. Like, you just know they're not going to.
Well, there's a part
to
two where you get a little bit disrespected, not because it's not like they chose this; it was the agreement that they had. But Utah playing up at Maverick Stadium, that doesn't happen very often. So that type of a thing too, where you go in there and go, we'll disrespect you guys on your own turf if that's the way you want to do it. So that's next week, of course. That's Utah State. That'll be a fun one inside the state between the two fan bases. So we'll take another break. We'll come back. We have what next week's schedule will bring in the Big 12. Speaking of next week, let's jump right in. It's all brought to you by Macy's. Happy shopping. Mitch Harper, Alex Kirry, back right next. Stay with us.
Read all the stories about BYU sports no one else has heard. Go to KSLSports.com for exclusive columns by BYU insider Mitch Harper. That's KSLSports.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Final segment of the show. Mitch, week 2 in the books now. Can you believe that? Our first and 12 Big 12 show into the second week. We'll be into the third week as soon as you know it, and then here we go. We got tons to take care of, tons to still chat with you about. But of course, it's a look ahead at the schedule of next week. What stands out to you? I mean, it's one thing to look and go, okay, here are all the games that are happening, but what are the ones that you're looking at and you're going, ooh, circle that one for the Big 12 this week?
Thursday night, Arizona State at Texas State. And I know that might sound, that's not a big deal, but Texas State might be the group of 5 playoff team.
They put it on UTSA yesterday.
They did. And it's a quick turnaround, late night game this yesterday for ASU. How do they fare on the road? I think that's going to be a big one. And then the next day, there's a lot of weeknight action this week. Friday night in Manhattan, Arizona at K-State, like Utah Baylor. It's a non-conference game from a home-and-home series, the two schools scheduled, but that is going to be a must-watch game. Kicks off the Friday night Fox college football slate, so I can't wait to see that. Network television, that's a big stage and a big platform for the Big 12 Conference. Those are the two biggest games to me this week in the Big 12.
Well, sneaky one, too, with Kansas and UNLV, because if UNLV stays on pace, because I think that they put, was it 27-7 in week 1? I think they put up 77 yesterday against the lightweight that they played, but
Utah Tech.
Yeah, it was Utah Tech. I didn't mean to dog the Trailblazers that much, but yes, UNLV is sneaky talented. One of the more talented teams in the Mountain West. They always have this thing where they get a lot of talent and they don't play very well, but yeah, that one's also a sneaky one for me. But that's also, you're going to have 3 games before the Saturday even starts up, or you could have some intrigue already. Oklahoma State goes to Tulsa. Is that the new in-state rivalry, Mitch, for the folks down there in Oklahoma?
I guess so. I'm sure that Barry Trammell and the crew, the media contingent, will be living that one up. I also am very intrigued to see Colorado State because, let's see how Coach Prime's team responds. It was interesting after the Nebraska loss. Coach Prime's going to social media and posting about his son, Shiloh, who suffered an injury.
Right.
And look, it's his son. I get that. But I think that's the whole piece that's been fascinating with Colorado is that teams are just super motivated to destroy Colorado because of Prime. And like even teams that have no history, these players, like Nebraska has no history recently with the Buffs other than last year, and they just wanted to crush them. And I just feel like it's an ongoing deal with them because they just put themselves in the spotlight and they act like they never lose, even though you are piling up a ton of losses, and it's not looking good.
Right.
It's got to get better.
It's the same thing. It's a little bit of that Dan Lanning effect from last year. It was just like, they were up 42-0 or whatever it was against Colorado in week 4. Like, we actually play football. We don't play for the clicks. And that's like every team now goes, all right. And there was part of me that goes, are these announcers disappointed that they're not calling a Colorado win over Nebraska? Like, it felt a little bit weird. They love Colorado because of the attention that it brings, and with good reason. But you're right. That's it's an interesting one in Colorado, Colorado State. That might be a dog of a game, though. Those are two programs that are pretty down in that state. UCF going
TV.
to TCU.
It's on CBS.
No, I know. UCF at TCU. That's a sneaky game of two teams that are right in the middle of our power poll, right?
Yeah, it is, and it's the first Big 12 game of the season, and it takes on a network television stage, 5:30 p.m. on Fox, and I bring that up because that has been such a big talking point for Brett Yormark, and this conference is shaping the narrative, getting big TV marquee windows. Okay, that's the one where you draw up the storylines about the Big 12 conference, first Big 12 game of the season, and it's two programs that are almost kind of like new money in a way, where TCU's been an upstart the last 15 or so years. UCF's kind of the newest kid on the block the last 5 to 7 years. But they're two programs that have the potential, Alex, that 15 years from now, if this Big 12 is still in its same form then, they could be near the top because of their areas that they recruit, because of the alumni, the money that's potentially there. These could be big-time programs long-term in this conference. So it's an intriguing matchup. And I think that both these teams, this should be a really entertaining ball game. And then for the in-state teams, BYU goes to Wyoming. Never thought I'd say that since BYU left the Mountain West. And then Utah goes to Utah State. Never thought I'd say that again. So kind of some old stomping grounds for BYU and Utah this week.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, we're going on the BYU part of it. BYU fans are feeling extremely good right now going into that game at Laramie.
Oh, yeah.
Not because necessarily that they feel like their team is just rolling, but I do think that they go, hey, they smell blood in the water a little bit with Wyoming, although it's not going to be a gimme because Wyoming, if they're going to be up for a game, they weren't up for their first two. They will be up for this game against BYU, and they'll be coming off an embarrassing loss too. And I think that they'll feel like people are going to underestimate them, and if there's going to be a moment that Wyoming could kind of wake up a little bit, it would be against BYU. Welcome to 72-20, Mitch. Oh, that's where you're going to be this weekend. So have fun.
I can't wait for it. It's going to be a lot of fun on 7,220 feet this Saturday night. But that's going to do it for this edition of First and 12, brought to you by Macy's Grocery Store. Get the freshest fruits and vegetables from local farms and your favorite local brands. Macy's, happy shopping. We'll talk to you next week here on First and 12 on KSL News Radio and the KSL Sports Zone.